We are just about finished with our triangle trig unit here. And so we're going to look at our last section, 12.5, finding the area of a triangle using trig. So we've done all the other parts. We've looked at right triangles, we've looked at using the law of sines, we've looked at using the law of cosines, we've looked at the ambiguous case, we've looked at so many different ways to solve triangles. The only thing we haven't done is find the area. So we can find all the sides, we can find all the angles. It seems like we should be able to find the area as well. We know everything else about it, and indeed that is true. We can find the area. So to find the area, we have a formula that's similar to law of cosines, changes slightly depending on the information you are given. And so let's look at what that formula is. To find the formula, or to not define the formula, to find the area of a triangle, we use the letter K for area because the letter A, which we usually use for area, is already used by one of our angles, right? We have our angles A, B, and C. So we're going to use the letter K for area of a triangle. And we can use any of the following formulas. K equals 1/2 B, C, sine A. Or, if we adjust that a little bit for different parts, 1/2 A, C, sine B. Or, as I'm sure you can guess for the third formula, 1/2 A, B, sine C. So essentially what we're using here is we are using one of our angles and the two sides that are not opposite that angle. Okay? So two sides and the angle between those two sides. That's what we're using to find area of the triangle. Okay? So if I've solved for every part of the triangle otherwise, if I have all the angles and all the sides, then I can pick one angle and the two sides that are not opposite, the two sides that make up that angle. Okay? If I'm not given all of that information, if I don't have the whole triangle, I just use whatever I am given to solve for my area. So let's look at an example where they do give us those three pieces of information. I have an angle C is 57 degrees, side A is 31, and side B is 42. So those are my two sides. So my formula I'm going to use is going to be 1/2 A, B, sine C. So I plug in what I know. 1/2 A, 31, times B, 42, times the sine of C, which is 57. And you can use your calculator again to just plug all that in. So 1/2 times 31 times 42 times sine 57 is going to give us 545.97. Okay? You know what your teacher is going to want as far as rounding and that answer goes. So me personally, I'll take those two decimal places. 0.97 looks good to me. And our unit here is centimeters, so it's centimeters squared. So that's going to be my answer. Easy enough. Memorize the formula, plug in what you have, and do the math in the calculator. Okay. So maybe you're wondering, okay, well great, but what if I have three pieces of information where I don't have that pair, or that two sides with the angle in between? What if I don't have that information? What if I have a pair instead? So let's look at a different piece of information here. Okay. Let's look at this one. This one gives us slightly different information. I have angle A, angle B, and side C. So in order to find area here, I have two angles and a side, but I need two sides, right? In order to do my area formula, I need two sides and the angle between those two sides. So in this case, I'm going to have to find another side first. So how do I do that? Well, think back to everything we know about how to solve triangles. I just need to find one more side. I have two angles, so I can do 180 minus 61 minus 78, and I'm going to get 41 for angle C. So if angle C is 41, then I can use this pair that I have here to find another side. So I'm going to use law of sines. Sine 41 over 37 equals sine, and I'm just going to pick one. Let's say angle A, so 61 over A. So I'm going to solve for side A. You could easily do the same thing solving for side B. Right? And so if I cross multiply, solve for A, I get that A equals 49.3. If you don't believe me, go ahead and do that math in your calculator. Take a minute to do it on your own. You should get 49.3 for A. And so if A is 49.3, and I want to find area, I have two sides and the angle in between those two sides. So I have A, C, and angle B. So the formula I'm going to use is 1/2 A, C, sine B. And I'm going to plug in those values. 1/2 of 49.3 times 37 times the sine of B, which is 78. Okay. Now again, this is one of those cases, another one of those rare exceptions, and remember there are a few, where I have a rounded answer, 49.3, and I'm going to have to use it in this formula. Okay, so again, remember we don't like to do that, but when we have to, and in this case we have to, you just go ahead and suck it up and do it. All right? So then if I plug all of this into my calculator, which I can do, go ahead and plug that in, I get that my area is 892.6 approximately, and I'm looking at inches, so inches squared because it's area. And again, once you have the parts you need and you have your formula, just take your calculator out and you can plug it all in there. What if I have three sides? What if I have three sides and no angles? If I have three sides and no angles, like my last example here before I get to that formula. Whoop. There we go. I'll come back to that formula in a second. If I have three sides, you have a couple of choices. I can either, one, use the law of cosines to find an angle, and then use my formula, or I actually have another formula I can use, and that's what I'm going to show you here. So if you don't like the formula I'm about to show you, you don't have to use it for these cases, but it does make these a little bit easier. I could use law of cosines with my three sides to find an angle. Go back to our video, law of cosines. The second example is an example of that. Once you get that one of those angles, then you use that angle and the two sides that make up the angle, just like we did just before this. So you can do that, or you can use this formula. So Heron's formula here says that the area is equal to square root of S times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C. So what is S? S is 1/2 of the sum of all the sides, A, B, and C. So in order to use this formula, which I can use here, I can first find S. S is 1/2 of the sum of all of the sides. So 12 plus 14 plus 18 times 1/2. So 42, 10, 20, 30, 44, sorry. 44 divided by 2, so 44 times 1/2 is 22. So then I can use my formula for the area. That really should be a K right there instead of an A. So my formula for the area is square root of 22 times, and then I'm going to go to each side and do 22 minus that side. to get the three numbers that I need in my parentheses here. So 22 minus 12 is 10. 22 minus 14, 8. 22 minus 18 is 4. So I'm going to go down here in my formula and do 22 times 10 times 8 times 4. And then it's just a matter of doing the math here. 22 times 10 times 8 times 4, and then take the square root of that, so I can do all that in my calculator, and I get 83.9. And I go back, I don't have any units, so I'm just going to say units with the u squared, whatever that u would be. And that's it. That's my area, and I found it using a slightly different formula than the first one we learned, but it does work. And if you don't believe me, you can try the law of cosines to get an angle, use your other formula. Because we round some of our numbers, your answer might be off just a tiny bit, but it's going to be very, very close. All right? And that's it. That's how you find area. There's only two formulas you really need to know how to use them, and there they are. Okay. Hopefully a little bit easier than some of the other trig we've done. And that's everything you need to know to find out everything about triangles. You can now find all the parts, angles, and sides, and you can find the area now as well. All right?